Just one question, like how many of you attended this morning session? Also here? Yeah, the two. Thank you. So this morning session is for the combination between like slide and demo. This session is a little bit different. So it will organize like a mini workshop. So I need you to also brainstorm together with me so you can like get the key takeaway messages. Because I know that for conference, you run into one room to another and then you learn a lot of codings, then it can be hectic sometimes. So this more on how to organize your thoughts and then so you can write the code kind of better and tackle the problem in different angle to solve the problem to make business impact. So that's the expectation. I keep forgetting this. So, yes. Okay. Okay, thank you. So, appreciate the contribution of our sponsors for the great experience at this conference so far. And a little bit about myself. So currently I'm the lead consultant at Devo Team, which is a technology consulting firm. And I have more than 12 years of working experience in analytics and data management in Asia and Europe. So my background is a little bit different. It's more on analytics and data science. So the way that I write the code and the way that I tackle the problem also may be a little bit different from your background because I believe that most of you come from system admin or core infra. Throughout my career, I also write some articles for different companies and also write the article for United States Security Magazine. For example, I propose how to tackle the issue of fraud, how to capture fraud and prevent fraud through data science, or a newspaper in Vietnam. And then I also, here and there, I also draw the article in my own blog post, analysis with un.medium.com, and feel free to connect with me through LinkedIn. So here the agenda today have 4 main parts. First, I will come with the case study, the real world problem, the case study, and then have some questions to discuss with you about what's the drawbacks of that architectures. And then we can come up with the new architecture, like you brainstorm based on your own experience. And then we will explain why we need to use PowerShell and Azure DevOps in this case. And then implementation and conclusion. So the existing architecture. So the background. So this is the client. The company just did an aggressive merge and acquisitions during COVID-19. And then as a result of it, because they acquire different companies, and different companies, they use different architecture, different data platform. Now they unify into one. So the questions is that how they can get the value out of it, how they can make the whole machine work smoothly. Because some companies that they acquire use AWS, some other companies use Azure, some other company they just use Excel file. So different. And now the question, how can they solve the problem? So the question they have, the problem that they have now is that 3 main problems they want to tackle. The first, how they can quickly get the insight from the report. So they have different data platform, but then solve the data platform, it's hard for them to extract the information, to get the number, to know the performance of that company, whether it's a good decision to acquire the company after several months running. And currently, because the data are quite silo, so they want to know, like through how to make the reporting system that being stable, so they can have some sort of truth, so they can extract the information. And the last one, a lot of manual work involved For example, some company, they still get the information from the system, and then they manually put the number into Excel file, and how we can put those number into the parent system. So that's those kind of question. It's a real world problem. So I know that a lot of you have different background, and you work maybe in a company, a big corporate. They already mature in terms of technology. So, however, that's the number of those companies, not a lot. So those are the companies that they still want to keep up with technologies while they want the technology that really solve their problem. Maybe it's not the best technology around the world, but it's the best technology for them. So we received this question in terms of from business stakeholders. Now we want to translate those business obstacles into the architecture. So we access we see that how the current architecture look like. So as I mentioned earlier, from the data source, they just two of them, but they have so many. For example, currently some of them use Microsoft SQL Server Management. Some of them just put the Excel file and upload into Dropbox. And then those data, they can use Python in order to convert into the data frame. And then they load into S3, like the red icon there, S3. So S3 is just if you're familiar with Azure more, it's more like Azure Blob Storage. So it's like unstructured data storage. And then after that, they load data from S3 to Amazon Redshift. So Amazon Redshift is the place where you store structured data. So that's how they work. And then they use Jenkins in order to automate the whole process. That the ETL, or meaning that extract, transform, and load data, or ELT process. And they visualize into both Power BI and Jaspersoft, depend on which company. So this is the whole architecture, and it's just it's simplified like this, but in reality, it's a lot. So now I just pick one of the pipeline in order to solve the problems, and for us to learn in this session today. That's the manual input. So, for example, in reality, even with big corporate, because I work also for big corporates sometimes, even with big corporates, they also, big company, they also encounter this problem sometimes, especially in FP&A department. They are the department that also still familiar more with Excel file rather than other technologies. I think I need to go here a bit. Yeah, so for example here, the pipeline look like this. They have the Excel file in Dropbox folder, and then they extract the data using Python. They convert the Excel file into a data frame in Python. After that, they do some data manipulation, extract the data from Redshift, and then they do data manipulation, transform, and load into S3. And from S3, they transfer data one more time into Redshift. So now, what I want you to do is that in each of the steps, brainstorm with me what's the problem could be and how you can tackle the problem just based on your experience. So for example, for the first step, what do you think the problem of the first step could be? Yes?
Excel files can be in a different format, probably not always the same as you.
Exactly. And also it's because at this step still human input, and it can be different format, and then the column name can be different. And it's a lot of possibility, a lot of things can go wrong. That's correct. It's still manual. And then how about the second one? Okay, I only reviewed one of them. The second one is like when I look at the code, I see that the code is still inefficient because it repeats many times doing the same thing again. If they have some methodologies to look, for example, it can also reduce the cost of maintenance when it comes to human resource and time. How about the third one? Load data into S3. Anyone here working with Amazon technology? Oh, nice. Gracie or Athansios, you want to answer?
Why S3? You already have Dropbox or Microbox. If you already have S3, load your file in one place.
Okay, exactly. So now S3 is more on for unstructured data, but while in Excel file and they transfer they already like transform into data frame. So it's more like structured data, and then they load into S3 and later step they push it again into Redshift. Like structure, unstructured, and structure. So S3 here play no role at all in this specific pipeline. So they have a lot of pipeline. Maybe for other pipeline it makes sense, but for this specific pipeline it doesn't make sense. How about the last one? Transfer data into Redshift. What could go wrong here? Yeah, it's just cross-platform. No, nothing. Maybe nothing go wrong here, but it's just like increase like layer after layer, and then they carry out the ETL process through Jenkins. Jenkins now there are a lot of people use Jenkins, and Jenkins itself is not a problem. The problem is that, so for example, if I just walk through how the Jenkins form look like. So, for example, here, I try to zoom in, but maybe it's a little bit broken. It's like you just input, like you schedule, like it's just a script scheduler. So you schedule the time that you want to run, and you put into the command here. For example, you want to go to the folder manual, and you want to run this Python code. So, and then inside this Python code, you will drive your script. So Jenkins on Pacific hour or Pacific day, it will keep running automatically your script. So that's how it works. So Jenkins itself is not a problem. The problem is this. They give the admin rights for everyone. And what are the problems? Because the admin right for everyone, so everyone wants to enhance or fix the bugs. And imagine that they can replay the code. Then it's very hard to retrieve the last version of the code. So, and then the other problem would create a huge bottleneck for the whole flow. It as they work on exclusive virtual machine. Meaning that like, and then this one, they only have limited license. Or only 2 people can log in to the virtual machine at the same time. So imagine your team have 4 to 5 people. And then you want to, like more than 2 people want to work at different problems at the same time. You need to ping around and then see, and then ask whether you can kick other person out. And if one person is your boss, then you don't want to ask your boss to kick him out. Then you want to kick your colleagues, and then it keeps like the process keep longer and longer. So those are the problems in the real world. And now, why do we use PowerShell and Azure DevOps? Anyone have any questions so far? Yes. Can you elaborate more?
Was this critical to the business that this data got imported?
Okay. So the question is, why it's important for business to import the data. So is this your questions? Yes. So the business want to get the data of different company because they just acquire doing merger acquisition for they acquire different companies. So for example, just like you, when you buy, for example, stocks, you want to keep how it's performed, right? So it's similar thing here. When you acquire the company, you buy the assets. So you want to see that like how they look, whether it's performed good or bad, and whether the business still as usual and how you can tackle the problem. So that's why they want to get those data and visualize as soon as possible so the parent company can see how they work, how they perform. So that's it also. Thank you for the question. This also go back to one of the requirements here is that whatever we do, we need to do it fast to make increase the visibility for the management. So why do we use PowerShell in Azure DevOps? So it's like we can use we see a lot of best practice out there. We can just simply copy the strategy of other companies that already have the similar size, doing in similar industry, also doing aggressive merger and acquisition, and then we can just copy their strategy and architectures. Then it's done. However, it's not the case here. We can also use it like more fancy term, like best practice. But we want to find the strategy that best suitable to the client because different companies have different problem. And in this case, it's quite unique. So, and also we want to tie back to focus more on business value because at the end of the day, whatever we do, it's like whether we get budgets to carry out the architecture design, it's always tied back to the business value. So here they want to increase the visibility of a report and want to scale up. And also one problem here that they don't have the version control in place. That's why it's very hard to trace back what is the latest version of code. So above the old architectures, and the new one is still at this step, still Excel file in Dropbox, and we use PowerShell to automate it and transfer data directly into Redshift for this pipeline and remove the S3. And also using Azure DevOps here. So this is the new architectures. So a lot of you can have the question like, why at this step we still use Excel file in Dropbox folders? So here is, so we also have the process in place that can automatically call the API or load the data from the system directly into Redshift, that ETL process. But because of the requirements that they want the visibility of the report fast, so that's the solution first, while we still build other solutions parallelly. So the outcome, I talk about the outcome first, is that the code is like the performance increase and it's more reliable, scalable, and address the security concern as well, thanks to the code versioning. And also we limit the admin rights and have the system in place to control the admin rights. So now it's come to the most important part, which is, this is the outcome, which is the implementation. So we use for PowerShell here, in order to handle the Excel file, extract the data from Excel file, we use import Excel. And thanks to Defink, he's the one who tried this. So with Azure DevOps, so we have a lot of feature of Azure DevOps here. But at this point, because of the specific requirements, we didn't use all of the features. Like, it's awesome, but we don't use all of them. For example, at this point, it's very important that the team meet together, and because they are quite different company, different people from different team joining together, so we use Azure boards in order to have kind of like a standard way of working and tracking, have the board to plan, track, and discuss across the team. And then we use Azure repos. So, for example, here, so this feature allows us to upload the code there and modify, and people can review, create a code review culture in order to review the code and keep track of the version of the code. And also use Azure pipelines, building the CI process. At this point in time, there's no requirement yet to use Azure test plans, even though it's good. And it's recommended to do the unit test, right? But at this point in time, it's like, because it ties back to the business value, we haven't carried out yet. So for the Azure DevOps, for the repos, this one is the image I copied from online. I don't modify because it's described pretty accurate what we did. So everyone, the author, write the code, and then they push into the they use Azure report to push, and then the reviewer will review, and then we'll give the comments into that. If the reviewer agree, then they will accept the merge request and they merge into main branch. If not, then the author needs to rework again. And the review process is a two-way communication. So not only the reviewer can learn about how the reviewers write the code, but also the author can also learn from the feedback of the reviewer. Yes. And then here, I will capture some part of the Python code and some part of the PowerShell code to show you what's the difference before and after. So here, the Python code here, I will zoom in a little bit. So here, the path I only changed, like because I want to keep information of the client confidential, so I changed the parent path. But here, if I zoom in a little bit, so in a nutshell, this piece of Python code is going to look in all of the folder in Dropbox and try to find specific Excel file that ends with _KBI. So it's try to look for that specific part of the code. And now it's PowerShell. You see that like it's a very long Python code, but if you convert into PowerShell, here, for example, I use the commandlet get child item. It do the same thing. It iterate through a parent path, and then it look for all of the file and subfolder inside the parent path, try to find specific Excel file, and he is also split the whole path name in order to find the name that match the one that we want to look for. And here it's use the import Excel in order to import the whole worksheet. And if there is an error, then it will return, and then the people will see that was the error. So the code here is shorter, is readable. The second example here. So is how Python look like. So back to your earlier input, that if we use in Excel file input, then we may encounter some format, right? It's weird format. So for example here, I zoom in a little bit, the first one, it's like they want to rename For example, some column name is different. So Python needs to handle that, how to rename the column name. And the second one, instead of input Netherlands, they put Amsterdam, for example, in the city. So because it's human, so a lot of things can go wrong. And now look at the PowerShell code, how it's handled. Yes, another one is like Python. If they cannot look for, they don't see the column, then it will return the error. So you need this part of the code in order to handle it. Create empty data set, and then data frame, and then append together. And now look at the PowerShell. So in PowerShell, we use function, replace values, create a new function. The benefit of this is that if you want to change the name, you can just go into this function and put Amsterdam, meaning Netherlands, replace. And later on, in the later step, you want to do unit tests. It's also easier for you to do unit tests as well. And here, in the late, yes, so this one. Sorry. And the later part is that how PowerShell handle replace the column name as well. So here it's easier for you to have the code in one place, and if anything you want to change, you just go into switch value name and change easily. Any questions so far? Okay. So let's come to the conclusion part. So I don't show all the code, but I want to demonstrate to the point that how PowerShell create a tool for you to intuitive way for you to read the data and handle the ETL process. However, this methodologies also have some limitation, and we are totally honest about that, and also have the enhancements planned in the future. For example, here, if you look at it, it could be better if we use Dropbox API. Yes, the best solution could be that like we just extract the data directly from the system and load into Redshift. However, while waiting for that, we can use Dropbox API, because right now the Dropbox still in a specific machine, and integrate further with Azure DevOps, for example, using the test plans, for example, and carry out unit testing. So those are the limitation. And in summary, cover 3 points. So this session is more on how we see the situation and try to find a better solution that's suitable for clients, rather than finding the best solution out there, and have some framework assessments in place. And what we see that PowerShell can provide the intuitive way of managing workflow. And why I put the quick learning here, because it ties back to Pacific company. This company, we did a survey, and we see that more people know PowerShell than Python. And because of the process that we want to put the number visible fast. So we think that, okay, then it's faster if we let 1 or 2 person try to learn PowerShell, reading PowerShell code, rather than as everyone else to learn Python all the way around. And also I'm mentioning that this is the existing Python code, and any person who know Python code, write better Python code, can enhance that on top of the current Python code. So here is not that like Python is better than PowerShell or PowerShell is better than Python, but it's more on a set to specific architecture of the company and the situation in order to achieve the business impact. Thank you, and now I'm welcoming for any question that you have. Yes.
I have a question about speed of those processes. From my experience, Python and Pandas, NumPy are quite faster than PowerShell.
Mm-hmm.
It's not problem in your case.
Okay, so the question is, okay. So in his opinions, Python's already fast and have good performance, whether it's in our case. So in this case, the answer is it's because of the way that previously were written. So the Python code were written before, and a lot of parts were repeated. So the code needs to run repeatedly, one part multiple times, and the way that they write the code is not very efficient. So the answer is Python definitely is a very good tool. So if person write the code efficient, then definitely it can carry out a job. I agree with you. But in this case, we can also jump in and rewrite the Python code. Can. However, and I just mentioned that more people know PowerShell than people know Python. So it's a quicker transformation to choose PowerShell. Yeah. And if you have any question about Azure DevOps CI pipeline, John can also answer that. He has excellent sessions. Any other questions? Yes?
Did you have any challenges when you converted your code from Python to PowerShell?
I think the challenges here is more on knowledge transfer. It's more on that part. For example, with the people who get used to Python, even though it's faster for them to learn another language than a person don't know any language to pick up the PowerShell. However, they still need time to learn. And in order to do that, we introduce the process in play, which we call we introduce the feature Azure repo where people push into the main branch, and then people can review and learn from that as well. And also, we group 2 persons at the same group. So the junior and senior, so they can teach and learn from each other. So it's more, in this case, it's the real world problem. It's not so much about which technology, but it's more on how you really tackle the problem to deliver business value in a certain time frame. Yeah. Yes.
At the beginning, I saw you had different sources where you got your data. Do you also fetch data from the SQL database as well?
Yes, yeah. yes. We have different data sources. The question is, at the beginning of the slide, I saw that a number of different data sources and whether I need to handle the pipeline as well. So the answer is yes. But for this specific presentation, I want to make the point. So I just pick one of the pipeline in order to show you. And also this pipeline, you want to do the test, you can also see the result immediately without the need to log into different systems to show the result. Yes? Any other questions? Okay, if not, thank you very much for attending.